Welcome to the POMcast with Steve Willis, your independent, unbiased, and unbought source for Ole Miss athletics. Good morning, good morning, good morning. November 16th, 2020. Thank you for joining us. Ole Miss versus Texas A&M week. Although, according to Mark Passwaters, it doesn't look like that game is going to be played. Now, we can schedule with an LSU game or a Mississippi State game if one of those can be played. So everybody be ready. Everybody understand this is kind of a process and be flexible. But it is Texas A&M week. That would be game 8 of a 10-game season. Ole Miss is 3-4. And the offense just looked fantastic. I'll explain the perspective you need to have about the defense. And do not fall into the trap of treating this like another season. Anyway, before we get started, you can follow us on Twitter at @TheStephenWillis or at @OlePositively. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast or join our Facebook group at Positively Ole Miss. You can hit us up on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Hit the bell for notifications. That'll help you to know when we're streaming in the near future. We're looking April, May timeframe for the TV experience to come to life. And, of course, you can catch us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss. So that's the video portion. If you're more of an audio person, which judging by the numbers you are, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. We're also on a bunch of smaller podcatchers. You can catch us there as well. That's kind of the benefits of expanding out. But if there's any platform that you want us to be on, you can hit us up. Once we start rolling in the spring, we're going to be checking our email every day. Basically, positivelyolemiss@gmail.com. And, that way you can advertise, we can figure out what we're going to do. So it's going to be for you. You'll also be able to see Facebook and Twitter and YouTube comments on the screen. So we're going to basically do a mailbag segment in the third segment every day, just where we just answer Ole Miss questions. It's probably going to be shorter, like a 5-minute segment, but we're going to get to a few every day. And there's a certain way that you're going to have to do to get those in. But we're looking at big time for the video portion of the podcast. It already is looking fantastic. Lots of hardwood, but we're going to be just the next level. And we're going to be able to do this because we're going to invest in $20,000, $30,000 worth of equipment and be able to provide a professional experience, calls, social media comments, video, the whole 9 yards. We're going to be able to do whatever we want to do. We can take in calls from like 6 different sources, and we have our own source for bringing interviews on the air. So there's really no limit to what we're going to be able to do. The only limit will be me and my wife, who's going to produce from time to time. So this is going to be really big time. This is going to be the next level. And we're going to do it next spring because as this pandemic is going on, has been going on, we want normalcy to hit. We don't care any other brands what they're doing because ours is going to be that much better. They can do whatever they want. I mean, the only problem we have is the narrative makers, but this podcast can help with that. This can help with the narrative. Because our goal, of course, is to expand the Ole Miss fan base. That's our single goal. That's our business model. That's our mission statement. Expand the Ole Miss fan base. Not to make money. Who needs money? If you need money and you're doing it for a job, all of a sudden money is going to affect how you do your job. Especially now that journalism has become so opinion oriented. Your opinion can make money. So this is what they do. They want to generate an emotional response from you so you will spend money. That is it. There's two emotional responses that is acceptable. That is elation and anger. So guess which one at Ole Miss that has won one Sugar Bowl in the last 50 years they continually try to do. I know, it's shocking. Their narrative of generating anger with the Ole Miss fan base being counterproductive is best for 2 people or 3 people or whoever's involved. Not best for the university. And so we're there to be the best case scenario for the university. And once the TV show launches this fall, you'll see exactly what we mean. This is going to be a next level thing. We're looking to be in complementary fashion with the university, not attached to the university. So we'll be able to do recruiting. We're going to find people to be our recruiting guy that has a platform. We're going to find a guy to be our Oxford guy that's going to practices and calling in. Because we're going to be broadcasting from the palatial Central Florida studios. I mean, that's no joke. But that's what we have to look forward to. And like I said, it seems like a long way off, but it will be here before you know it. And with that, the next step in Ole Miss Productions is going to be taken. We hope to be the home of information with our little 30-minute daily show, our weekly show on the SEC. We're going to provide content that is relevant, that is good, and stuff if you want to, we're going to do it on video, but we're also going to continue doing it in audio. You can listen to it on the way up to Oxford to see the game. So, anyway, segment 1 of the books, POMcast, Stephen Willis, right here on Positively Ole Miss. Stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
All right, Positively Ole Miss, POMcast, Stephen Willis, thanks for listening. Let's get into the game this weekend. This is kind of a look back. Will Muschamp got fired this weekend. That that is a side effect that happens when you give up 700 yards in year 5, when you're a defensive-minded coach and your whole philosophy is about protecting that defense. Giving up 700 yards is pretty hard to take. You're going to hear a lot of people talk about Hugh Freeze, and that's just because Liberty is ranked. But the reality of it is Ole Miss is still on probation. The SEC will not hire him this year. They might next year, but they won't hire him this year because Ole Miss is still on probation and will be until December 1st of this year, so about 2 weeks. But the fact that we're still on probation this year is probably going to eliminate him until 2021 within the conference. They're not going to let us jump off probation and let somebody else hire him. Especially with what LSU is about to go through. They're about to go through some things down in Baton Rouge. Couldn't happen to better people. But when it comes to Hugh Freeze and Liberty and South Carolina or Tennessee, it's not going to happen this year. If it does, it just means the SEC is doing an FU to Ole Miss. Because they did everything they could to force him out the door. A suspension was given to him over the NCAA violations that we got lack of institutional control. They obviously blame him because Ross Bjork got another SEC job. This was painted on Hugh Freeze. So they're not going to let that happen. Look for Billy Napier to be the next head coach at South Carolina. This is what we said for a year. This is what we said he was waiting on. And there it is. My guess is Billy Napier will be the next head coach at South Carolina. And Tennessee, who knows about Tennessee? I think Jeremy Pruitt is going to be fine there. They went to a bowl game last year. I mean, that's the way that goes. But Will Muschamp got fired. Matt Corral has now put together the best 2-game combinations of performance in Ole Miss history after having the best single game last week. And now he got real close last Saturday. To put this in perspective, he's thrown 7 incompletions over 2 games. That's 8 quarters. He's thrown 10 touchdown passes during that same time frame. That's ridiculous. That's nuts. That also shows Ole Miss is catching the ball. And it also shows, if you go back and watch the game, 2 of those incompletions that he had was on the first drive. This whole thing, Jeff Lebby and Lane Kiffin has learned how to handle him. They've learned how to call plays and script plays in the beginning to get him rolling. He's always been a guy that when things go poorly, things go really poorly. When things go well, they go really well. So he's a super high ceiling guy, super low floor guy. They're trying to do coaching-wise to raise that floor. And then the performance can be more consistent and you can start stacking performances on top of each other. That's what they're doing with Matt Corral. Oh, also congratulations to Braylon Sanders. He had 140-ish yards receiving against South Carolina. One of 2 100-yard receivers, and I think 4 different guys have gone over 100 yards this year. It's kind of impressive. But the offense is the best in the country. Especially with Jalen Waddle getting hurt. It's the best offense in the country. Now, I say that, and the defense is bad. But I've told you over and over and over again this season, celebrate the positives, ignore the negatives in this Frankenstein season. And Ole Miss, their defense is a Frankenstein's monster of defenses. 2 years of Wesley McGriff, 1 year of Mike McIntyre, 1 year of DJ Durkin. Now everybody mold together, and even though it's 3 different systems to run what we're doing, it doesn't work. Oh, and by the way, your best 2 transfers, Jacob Springer and Otis Reese, they won't be eligible this year. So just make do. But again, I will say this again. You have linebackers that were recruited to do A gap and B gap coverage. Now being asked to do contain, go sideline to sideline. You've got a safety that is probably the best pass defender we have, but is also probably the worst run defender we have, asked to cover contain. That's what's happening. And Katie Hill was out against South Carolina. People are underestimating Katie Hill, but he's a big part of the improvement that happened in the run game over the past 3 games. So what I'm telling you is celebrate the positives, ignore the negatives. For this year, there's no spring. They behind them fall camp. They probably didn't get the personnel fit until week 5. And now we're in the middle of another COVID apocalypse. So celebrate the positives, ignore the negatives. The defense got 3 consecutive stops to end the game while the offense worked in a game that we won by 17. If anybody's upset about the defense did their job. Offense did their job. 17-point wins against SEC teams don't just happen. That's weird that I had trouble with SEC teams. But does it need to be better? Of course. Is it going to get better? Probably not. But here we go. With LSU, their spread team. Mississippi State doesn't run the ball at all. And Texas A&M runs old man football, which is probably the best or the worst matchup for Ole Miss this season. A combination of old man football and lining up with the zone defense. They don't play a lot of man. As you can see, if you play a lot of man against us, we put up 50 against you. We are excellent with man concepts. And now that Matt Corral is looking off people, I'm curious to see what the drop 8 looks like. But they're just running them out of the drop 8. I think Texas A&M is going to try and play us with a semi-normal game plan for them, which will include them playing a lot of zone defense. So be on the lookout for that. But that game, of course, is in jeopardy of not being played. So this weekend, we could be playing Mississippi State or we could be playing LSU. I don't know. It's all about flexibility. And if you want to treat this season like any other season, just take a look at that. Our opponent for this weekend on Monday could change. I mean, that is not a normal thing. This is not a normal season. I mean, they fired Will Muschamp at South Carolina because Will Muschamp broke the cardinal rule. And that is, don't change systems when your players don't match it, because they will not give you time to get the right players in. What does that mean? Well, you look at Auburn in 2012 with Gene Chizik. going from Gus Malzahn, where he won a national title, to a pro-style system. They went 3-9. Happens over and over and over again. Let's look at Ole Miss last year. Hired Rich Rod. We had air raid personnel, big receivers, everything you can imagine. Changed the system to something else. Coach gets fired. Until people realize what role this plays, you can't just coach up every player. There's not one type of football player. When people say there are no talent, they don't know what they're saying. They're saying there's one type of football player. And then they'll say they don't understand why last year's defense was serviceable and this year's defense is so bad. It is a system problem. It is a group of players that needs to be changed over to match what we're doing. Do not fall for the bait of thinking there's only one system. There's only one type of player. Recruiting rankings are really responsible for this. So don't fall for recruiting rankings either. Use them, have fun with them. Use them as a basis to figure it out in the beginning, but know the system thing is real. Segment 2 in the books coming up. Lines for this week if it happens. Stick around.
You want to answer that, don't you? I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on, answer it already! Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive. A message from Florida's trusted choice independent insurance agents.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis. I just want you to stick around a little longer. We're going to get back to the podcast right after these messages.
Tonight, nearly 40,000 veterans across the country are homeless. These men and women have pledged to serve our nation, and now we must serve them. Landlords across the country have helped make significant progress in reducing veteran homelessness by making housing available, but there is more that we can do to bring our veterans home. Visit www.va.gov/homeless to see how you can get involved. And if you are a veteran and you are experiencing homelessness, please call 877-4AID-VET. Thank you.
All right, POMcast, Stephen Willis, thanks for joining us on this Monday morning. We got some lines coming up, but there's no guarantee that these games are going to be played, and I mean, honestly, another team could show up as well. I mean, these lines may be useless, but they're lines, so we're going to do it. Two single-digit lines out of 7 games this weekend. One of them, I just want to say, if you went back to the beginning of the season and this was the line, somebody told you this was going to happen, you would assume the apocalypse. You would assume terrible, terrible things. And you wouldn't be wrong, because Arkansas is a 3-point favorite versus LSU. I'll say that again. Arkansas is a 3-point favorite versus LSU in Fayetteville. Last year, LSU, their offense was unstoppable and all the things, and then everybody left, and they're just a bunch of dudes. By the way, they're going through the same system thing on defense with Bo Blaney, going from Dave Aranda, have a bunch of dudes recruited for that 3-4 system, going to a sideline 4-3-1. Yeah, it's a thing. Also, Missouri favored by 4 points at South Carolina. I think that line is going to jump, but is something to look at. Let's see, what's the next lowest line? From regular game to blowout. Next is Tennessee at Auburn. Auburn is favored by 10 points over the Vols on the Plains. Texas A&M is favored by 12 points with Ole Miss going to College Station. Georgia is favored by 24 points at home versus Mississippi State. Alabama is favored by 30 points at home against Kentucky. And Florida is favored by 31 points at Vanderbilt. So that's the lines for what it's worth. All those could go away. Some of those could go away. None of those could go away. We just don't know at this point. But as it stands now, those are the games that are scheduled for this weekend. Last week was a slate of 7 scheduled, and we got 3. Who knows what this schedule will bring? We got 7 scheduled again. So I'm interested in the Missouri at South Carolina game because of the Will Muschamp situation. I would imagine Billy Napier has already reached out to representation, and he should. I mean, having Louisiana ranked is no small feat. So good job there. Ole Miss at Texas A&M, we're going to get into that as the week moves on. But Texas A&M has found an Ole Miss football identity. I look for Isaiah Spiller to get the ball early and often and for them to run off tackle. And we need to find somebody that is off tackle willing to defeat a block and get off, make the tackle defensively. Basically, South Carolina, what they did will be a scout team version of what Texas A&M will do. A little bit better quarterback, a little bit better running back, better tight ends. It's just better in all the positions. They recruited better. But Ole Miss is stacking wins on each other. If Ole Miss gets Texas A&M this weekend and puts them down, next thing you know, you have State and LSU. There's a chance to win out and have 5 straight wins to end the season, finish 6-4. Go to a nice bowl game. Because let me let you in on a little secret. Bowl games are going to be about eyeballs this year. Not necessarily in the stadium, on TV. Because they will be limited in the capacity of what they can sell. Because we're in the middle of another COVID apocalypse. Hopefully that dies down by New Year's Day. Not saying it won't. But they want eyeballs. And the most fun team in the country this year is Ole Miss. So there's a chance that Ole Miss could end up at an Outback Bowl. Something like that. Because Alabama and Florida will be positioned in the playoff as it sits now, but if not, into the New Year's Six bowls, maybe with Georgia, and that takes it down to Citrus Bowl being team number 4. Team number 4 looks like it's going to be Georgia, so that's the Citrus Bowl. Who's team number 5? Texas A&M? Okay, Texas A&M might make the New Year's Six as well. But there's a chance at the Outback Bowl. There's a chance at the Texas Bowl. The Las Vegas Bowl this year is not being played, or that could have been a thing. But next year, that'll be a thing. But Ole Miss is the most fun team in the country. They're the best offense in the country. That's not going anywhere. Offense gets eyeballs. Anyway, that's the show for today. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Stephen Willis, and this has been the POMcast. See you tomorrow.